Oh, I should turn that off. Great reminder, phone. This is my set, I'm assuming.
Okay, I got like 20 seconds.
Diverse voices.
Unique sound.
Not the same old thing, different.
This is NoCo FM.
Hello, everyone. How are we? This show looks a little different than it has in the last few weeks. I am your humble substitute host, Chris Lanfear, and with me is...
Hi, I'm Stina. I'm joining the NoCo cast as the intern.
Yes, she's our lovely, unpaid, amazing intern. Yeah, so Charles unfortunately could not make it tonight, and KevCat unfortunately could not make it tonight, but we send them our best, and we love them. And I'm hearing a lot of echo on this for some reason. Anywho, how are you guys? There's nobody watching yet, so it's cool. So yeah, I mean, the idea I think was to sort of just kind of talk about what our experiences at UMS were, but or in New West Fest were. But before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you joined NoCo?
I guess I can start the story saying it started with a Facebook post. I was interested in getting into podcasting as far as spreading positivity and personal growth, and I put something out on Facebook one day, and Charles actually got back to me, and that's how I got connected with Chris and NoCo FM, and here I am.
Yeah. Amazing how things happen. Like if you want to work with us, all you have to demonstrate is a desire to do it, because, you know, we love teaching new people and bringing new energy into the fold. And I'm excited to be able to like have some part in like developing your show. Because I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But Stina is a professional photographer, in addition to also being a pharmacist. Or is it pharmacist or
Farm tech?
Tech.
Just technician.
I don't know the difference, but that's okay. But you know, we were lucky enough, and we've talked about this on the last couple of shows, to be able to be invited to be press for a couple of different music festivals here in Colorado. And when we decided to do 2 festivals in the span of like 3 weeks.
I think it was more like 2.
Well, yeah, it was like festival 1, then a weekend off,
Yeah,
then
exactly.
festival 2, which the weekend off wasn't really one because we were kind of like trying to figure out what we were going to do and what we were going to prep for.
Planning, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so we did the Underground Music Showcase, which we've talked about before, which was awesome. And that was also Stina's kind of like first event with us, which was really awesome because we had 3 people shooting, well, 2.5, because we had Charles and Stina shooting, and then I shot a couple of things that didn't look very good.
Oh, you got some great shots, though. You got to give yourself more credit.
Well, I appreciate that. But we had, so then, yeah, then we had the weekend off, if you will, where Charles and I spent most of that time editing and processing and posting the stuff that we did at UMS. And if you haven't seen that stuff yet, so we have a number of interviews on our YouTube channel, and also, of course, being a radio station, they're available as podcasts as well. And there's still more to put up. We have an interview with Wilderness that we still have to post, and Trace Chapman to post as well. And I think, oh yeah, the one we did with the Burrows, I still need to post that. So though more are forthcoming. And then this weekend we did Bohemian Nights at New West Fest, which was a little bit easier logistically because that takes place in our hometown of Fort Collins here. And we decided to kind of go easy on ourselves this time because UMS was a lot of work, and it was really tiring, and it was really hot, and it was really... I feel like we almost tried to do too much at once, considering it was the first event that we really tried to cover like that. I feel like, we were like, let's get as many interviews as we can. Let's cover as many things as we can. And it's good to want to do that. But in a festival that's sprawled out across, downtown Denver like that one was, it was probably a little bit too much. I don't know. What did you think?
It was overall, as my first NoCo event, it was my first kind of festival experience musically like that.
Yeah.
And having so many artists on just this broad, range of venues, from coffee shop to actual makeshift stage, it was overwhelming to a point, but it was so neat to be able to meet some of these artists on the ground and hear a little bit about what they were doing and how they were trying to make their way into the industry. It was really just inspiring, and I think just took me a second, and I just really started to enjoy it and get into it.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things I took away was I thought, because I mean, I've worked in various aspects of entertainment for a long time, and when you, at least, but granted, that was in film. And in film, when you're trying to ask people for interviews, or when you're trying to ask someone for something, it is like pulling teeth to get it. Especially the more notoriety they have, the harder it is. And both at UMS and New West Fest, like pretty much everyone we reached out to was like, hell yeah. And that was so cool to like be a part of that energy and to just say like, hey, you know what? We are all trying to kind of help each other out. That was really exciting to be a part of. And UMS was a lot of fun. Like, I hope we get to do it next year. I think we'll have a better idea of how to structure things.
Yeah, what needs to be done.
Right.
No goodwill.
Oh, God.
Absolutely not.
And I don't remember if we told this story last week, but yeah, we scheduled our first interview. So there are 3 main venues at UMS and several smaller venues that are like bars and restaurants and found spaces along Broadway. But the central venue that also housed the headliners was the parking lot of a Goodwill on Broadway. And it's a partnership that UMS does with Goodwill, which I think is really cool. But we were struggling to find a place to actually conduct our interviews. And I don't want to say we, I think it was me, had the genius idea to do our first interview in the alleyway between the Goodwill and another parking area that we didn't have access to. And in doing this, we actually cut off the flow of traffic for people who were delivering donations to Goodwill. And I didn't think about this because I don't know, because I don't work at Goodwill, but I assumed that with the festival going on and their parking lot being closed, that maybe they just weren't accepting donations that weekend. But I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong because we were holding up traffic while we were doing our interview with Zach Maxwell. And that one is on our YouTube channel, so check that out. Shouts out to Zach Maxwell, who Corbin has nicknamed Zaxwell. But yeah, that we were sort of like having to hold traffic back while we conducted the interview. And we finished the interview we didn't stop. We literally held up traffic to the point where their manager came out afterwards and gave me a stern talking to and basically said, I'm trying to run a business here and you're screwing it up. So it's like, okay, well, I guess we got to scramble. And throughout the rest of the weekend, we kind of were scrambling. It was like, well, where do we do interviews that's both somewhat quiet and out of the way, but also still has some of the feel of UMS, but also is something that we can kind of control the environment where there's not like tons of people screaming and whatnot. So that was a logistical challenge. I think if we get invited back next year, we'll probably want to. I'm thinking about just getting a hotel room for everyone that can also serve as like a base of operations, because that was the other hard part. To their credit, UMS did have a basically the second floor of a coffee shop available for us. And that was great. It was great to have a base there, and it was for all UMS press, but we were pretty much the only ones who used it for most of the weekend. And, but it was so ungodly hot in there. It was like a converted house, and there wasn't any air conditioning. There wasn't any air conditioning in any of those
It was
buildings.
a loft at best.
It was, yeah. It was a loft. You would walk up these very narrow stairs that I wish we had gotten a photo of. But you walk up these very narrow stairs, and you have to like duck under the kind of like bracing support to get up there. And then if you couldn't jump at all because your head would hit the ceiling. So I think next year it'd be nice to have kind of a base of operations. But this most recent weekend, we did Bohemian Nights, and that I feel like was much easier and just as successful, but in different ways, because it was here, it was in an area that we knew. It was
home turf advantage.
It was absolutely home turf advantage, and but it was also our first time working with the Bohemian Foundation, which presents Bohemian Nights every year. And that had its own challenges, but I actually found everyone there to be very hospitable.
They were so nice.
Yeah, they're the kind of people that are overly nice, right? Like they're so nice that I feel like I must have done something wrong, and they're taking pity on me because they're just so kind.
Did you forget your sunscreen? There's sunscreen over there. There's bug spray over there. It's like I didn't even think of those.
So
things.
To contrast with UMS, and I'm not ragging on UMS because the people who ran press at UMS are awesome. But to contrast a little bit, Bohemian had part of their building set aside that was fully enclosed, air conditioned, private, and stocked with snacks and water
and La Croix.
To the point where they had to call in for backup La Croix because their La Croix was they were running into a shortage of La Croix. Yeah, you don't want to run dry of La Croix. I mean, I would. I mean, if it was like La Croix or
I'll pass.
Yeah, if it was like La Croix or starvation, I'd rather starve. But that's just me. I don't know.
I think we're in agreement here.
Yeah. But yeah, but New West Fest was much more relaxed. We decided not to pursue a whole ton of interviews. My initial thought was that it would be easier to interview people and just say, come over to the studio. But also it's in the middle of a festival and we're not exactly close to downtown Fort Collins. Like we're maybe a 10, 12 minute drive. So we're not that far either. But to ask people to go out of the festival and come here is probably more than most people would be willing to do. However, we did do one interview this weekend with Kaylin from Wheelchair Sports Camp, and that will actually be out tomorrow. So look for that. And that was awesome. She came in a few hours before her set at New West Fest and talked about like her politics and her kind of like inspiration. And Kevcat Martinez, who's our host of NoCo Gadio, who's usually sitting in this chair, just had a ball like interviewing Kaylin because I think Kevcat really looks up to her, which kind of ironic. That's a joke. And sorry, that's a short person joke. I really shouldn't have made that joke. But this is what happens when you're doing live television. You say things that you probably shouldn't otherwise. But Kevcat had such a reverence for Kaylin that it was really cool to be a part of that and to be able to like make that happen. And we talked about this just like before we went on the air, but it's like, at the moment, everybody who's working for NoCo FM is a volunteer, and what we lack in payment, at least in monetary payment, hopefully we can make up for at least somewhat in providing experiences for people. Because Kevcat told me that they didn't think they'd get to interview of someone of Kaylin's caliber, which I thought was really cool. Because she's like, yeah, I got my dog ate Chad, but you got Wheelchair Sports Camp. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? We got them the same way. All we had to do was reach out and say, hey, do you want to do an interview?
Oh, opportunity.
Yeah, and Kaylin was like thrilled to come here to our studio and chat with us for an hour. So it made me really happy to be able to make that happen. But we saw a lot at New West Fest. Like, what were some of your highlight moments?
I got to see the set of Wheelchair Sports Camp, and that was amazing. I just think that they have a really interesting flow. I love Kaylin's lyrics. I think that her perspective is just really interesting. And watching them on stage and perform live and the chemistry that they have on stage as
Yeah.
bandmates, it's a real pleasure to watch. Like, I didn't leave the front row. I just stood there. And the whole set just took pictures.
Yeah,
They were amazing.
They are a lot of fun, and I was. Yeah, when Kaylin came in for the interview, it was just her. It wasn't the rest of the band, which I kind of regretted, but also didn't, because we just got one-on-one time with her, which was really cool. But the band that she has, like, completing that setup, are all awesome musicians. And there was the keyboardist who had like some vocal pieces during the second set we saw at New West Fest.
Yeah.
And he was incredible. I do not know his name. We'll find out. But like it was awesome. So yeah, seeing that was I think Wheelchair Sports Camp and Wilderness are the only two acts that I saw at UMS and at New West Fest.
I think that's right.
Well, no, you saw Oxide
Well,
Daisy, right?
I didn't see them at UMS.
Oh,
But
okay.
I did see their set at New West Fest, and that was amazing. I thought they really rocked the stage, and I loved her voice. I thought she was amazing.
I was sad I missed that, and I was also sad I missed Dressy Bessie. But I did get to see some of Dressy Bessie at UMS, so that's cool. Also, like, introducing you to the glory of Plasma Canvas, which
Oh, yes. I enjoyed that set.
shout out to Adrian Ray Ash. We love you, and your set was fucking awesome. So Plasma Canvas, for those of you who don't know, and we've talked about them on the show before, and we've played one of their videos before, but they are a two-piece queer punk band from hell. Like, they are amazing. And they're local here in Fort Collins. Adrian Ray Ash is guitar and vocals, and I do not remember the name of her friend, who's the drummer and backup vocalist, but they are incredible, and they put on an amazing show. So, and theirs was toward the end of the weekend. It was like yesterday at like 5 o'clock, so it was,
Good time of day.
yeah,
It's beautiful.
it was beautiful. It was great. One thing that Adrian mentioned, and I thought this would be an interesting conversation for this show, was there was at least surprising to me, amount of police presence for a local festival
In Fort Collins.
in Fort Collins.
Colorado?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like, I could understand if it was like Lollapalooza or something, like one of those huge festivals where there's like hundreds of thousands of people. And I recognize that a lot of people go to New West Fest, but it's not on the level of some of those larger festivals. I mean, this is not Coachella or anything, or even UMS for that matter. But I saw a police officer with what appeared to be a machine gun, like basically every 50 feet. There was SWAT vehicles, there were dogs, and I recognize that we're coming off of two horrific tragedies in the span of like the last 2 weeks, and that is awful. And I'm not minimizing that by any means, but the show of police strength for Fort Collins didn't necessarily make me feel any safer. How did you feel about it?
They're there,
Yeah.
but you never really know what's going to happen in the moment until it happens. So they may have over prepared. But given the circumstances, there's so many ways I guess you could really take it.
Yeah.
So I think the city felt like it was more important to have a higher volume of police presence there, but it is what it is. I take it. I'm there to just photograph.
Right.
So I just hope everybody's there to enjoy the music and be part of the festival and see the crafts and eat the food and that we're all
have the
just-
fun.
Yeah, and have the fun. Enjoy
Yeah.
the experience.
For sure. And that's the important thing to remember. In the chat, Spark of Life has said that the drummer's name is Jude. So hi Sarah. How are you? But we got a chance to see her yesterday too, which was cool. Yeah, you're right. And I don't think the police presence got in the way of it. But what was interesting about the plasma canvas set was that Adrienne kind of called them out.
Yeah, that was really interesting. She's so bold.
She absolutely is. I mean, and it was a total like 100% punk rock fucking thing to do, right?
Oh, yeah. True to her brand.
Absolutely. And Adrienne actually posted this morning on Facebook that she doesn't know if they'll be invited back to New West Fest because they used profanity during the set, which is a no-no, and was getting mean mugged by the police after the set, apparently. For my money, I hope that Plasma Canvas gets invited back because part of the artistry of music is being able to speak truth to power, especially in punk rock music. And if you book a punk act for your show, you shouldn't be surprised or offended by that sort of behavior. So, and honestly, I think, she was saying what was on a lot of people's minds. So I appreciate that and I respect that. What else? You got to photograph Bonnie Raitt.
I did.
Tell us about
yes.
that.
Well, first we got the opportunity to photograph Julia Kirkwood, who's a young musician. I think they said she was 15.
Yeah.
Amazing voice. Her stage presence, she plays acoustic guitar. She performed an original song for us. It was amazing to get to photograph her right there from the pit. She's part of Little Kids Rock, which is something I guess both Bohemian Nights and Bonnie Raitt had in common. So it seemed like perfect kind of cover for this type of event, especially with Bonnie coming to Fort Collins. But yeah, they moved us to the back of house or to the front of house, I guess technically. It felt like the back, to be honest.
When you see the photos, you'll understand what we mean by that.
But it was amazing. I mean, her stage presence, like a big thing that for me as an audience member really is the chemistry that these bandmates and these musicians have on stage together, because that's part of the element of the music. And it just seemed like they were just having a good old time jamming to some songs from back in the day, where really like youth and life was right there in front of you, and to kind of relive on that and have someone of such caliber be there. Yeah. It was a really amazing experience. I enjoyed it. And the other photographers were so nice. Like everybody was just so courteous. Like, did you want to get this? Do you need to get in here? It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, like most press interactions are not like that. Like in my experience with photographers at festivals or public events of which there's someone of some repute, people are not so nice and they're not so friendly. Like, you're elbowing, you're trying to elbow your way in to get a shot before another photographer does. So it was really cool to hear about that and to know that, like, one of the great things about living in Fort Collins and being a part of this community is just how willing everyone is to help everyone else out.
It's a small town in a large town.
It is, yeah. It's that kind of like small town feel in a slightly larger town.
With terrible traffic.
Oh, that's right. With terrible traffic. But honestly, like one thing, a friend of mine who just moved from Denver to Fort Collins, and he says, I don't know why people here complain about the traffic because it still loads better than it is in Denver. And even with traffic, you can get from one end of this town to the other in 15 minutes. So that's really not horrible, So, I mean, that's one thing I've never fully understood about the traffic. But it definitely gets worse during school when CSU's in session. But that's why I avoid that side of town entirely.
Exactly, yeah.
I live on the east side. That's on the west side. Never the two shall meet.
I think there's beer on both sides. So
there is beer on both sides. Matter. Yeah. Hey, there's everything you need on both sides. So there's really, you got beer and you got good pizza, and chicken wings, and that's really all you need. And in the chat, Taylor's saying that's not traffic. That's 10 people at a stoplight. You're right.
Going 10 under.
That's true. And Taylor lives in Phoenix, where the traffic is actually horrible.
Yeah, I lived there for a bit.
Coupled with the fact that the heat is insane. I've been to Phoenix, I think 3 times in my life now. And the weather I hate fucking every time, except December. I spent a Christmas there.
Perfect time to go.
Yeah, I spent a Christmas there and it was incredible. It was Christmas Eve, and I am hanging out in a pool outside. Just I should have had like a Mai Tai or something, but it was amazing. And so I can appreciate the value in being in Phoenix during the winter. The summer, not so much though, because that's just kind of
It
gross.
can get rough, yeah.
I was there last April for my best friend's wedding, and the only thing that's worse than having to deal with that heat is dealing with that heat in a 3-piece suit. And their wedding was outdoors.
Oh, yeah.
And Taylor, I have not forgiven you for that choice. Oh yeah, and one part of Plasma Canvas's set that we apparently missed, or at least that I missed. I don't know if you stayed for it. Apparently, at the end of the set, Adrian threw her guitar and like snapped it in half. And
Definitely left before that part. I would have remembered that.
and then had KevCat come on stage with her.
Oh.
So there's photos. If you follow Plasma Canvas online, you'll see photos of KevCat like up on stage with Adrian, which is
so neat.
really fucking
It's
cool.
a great experience.
It was. And also I need to find out there was a woman. So Fort Collins has been going through this bizarre like hem and haw with a law on the books that prohibits female topless nudity. And it was like banned, and then it wasn't, and then it was banned again, and I think now we're in the non-banned period. I don't know.
I don't know what side of the fence we're on with it.
Yeah, we're somewhere in there. But this girl who's apparently like the biggest Plasma Canvas fan in the world, second maybe to KevCat, we're shooting, right? We're shooting photos, and I turn around, and this woman is like dancing her ass off, except her shirt is gone, and she's just like flapping all over the place. And granted, she had tape covering up the dreaded nipples, but I don't know who dreads nipples, but for some reason they're seen as taboo. But my God, was she into it. And I managed to grab one decent photo of her dancing. And you can see all the photos that we took on our Facebook page at Facebook.com/NoCo FM. We have more coming as well. So right now we just have the ones that I took up there, but more are coming. So look for that soon. And some of them are on our Instagram, but like we couldn't post absolutely all of them to Instagram because then that's all our Instagram would be. So check out our Facebook page for all of those. What's happening in the chat? Oh, whoa, Jesus. Taylor says it's 103 degrees and it's 7:30 p.m. Yeah, that's
Yes.
not okay.
No, that's regular, yeah.
That's not okay. I don't understand how people live anywhere that is constantly that hot. And I realize that people run their AC like 24/7, but even so, like you have to go outside at some point, and that's just not worth it to me.
No.
How long did you live in Phoenix?
I lived there just for 6-7 months. I had moved there right after high school because I got accepted to ASU, Arizona State. So I lived in Tempe for a little bit. I had some cousins that lived out there. So I go back and visit. I try every year.
Mm-hmm.
But the last I went was for my cousin's wedding, which I think was like 4 years ago now. So speaking of hot, we had gone, it was July. She had an outdoor farm wedding.
Gross.
And I was the photographer, so you can imagine how exhausted I was at the end of the day. And we took my other cousin, me and his wife, we road tripped, and he had never been there before, never. And me and his wife, who had both spent time living in Phoenix, she more so than I, were explaining to him that when they say crack an egg on the sidewalk and you can fry it, they mean that.
That's not a euphemism?
No, that's a real thing. So he likes to walk around barefoot. So we were, that the point of us trying to explain this to him, like, you need sandals, bud. You got to bring your sandals. Yeah. And
I don't like where this is going.
He forgot the next morning and just took one step outside the covered patio, and he just, we just, we spent all that time explaining it to him. We should have just let him figure it out on his own.
Yeah. Taylor says, I've never had to shovel a driveway. Checkmate. I don't think so. You know why? Because shoveling a driveway takes like 10 minutes max, and you're warm afterwards. It's really not that hard.
With a snowblower. It takes
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how big your driveway is and how much snow there is. But have we gotten that much snow in the last couple of years?
last winter it was relatively
Pretty,
light, but there is a
yeah.
few huge storms. Like I remember having to get out there, and it's weather. I just deal with it until
Yeah.
I'm old, and then I'll move to Phoenix
When it doesn't matter how
or
hot
Florida.
you are. Or Florida. Oh God, I don't understand how people live in
The
Florida.
humidity, like I could take the hot heat, but not the humid heat.
See, the humidity is disgusting. I used to work for a convention in Atlanta, and it took place over Labor Day weekend every year. And the humidity was absolutely disgusting. I don't understand how people
The air
live
sticks
there.
to you. You're
Yeah.
walking in Jello. It feels like.
I could swear to you, like, that my sweat would fall off my brow and then come back up and hit me in the face. That's how disgusting it was. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Like, I think that actually happened. Or at least I've told myself that that's what happened.
The chat's just blowing up.
Yeah, Sarah and Taylor are going crazy in the chat. What's going on with the forks? Why are we talking about forks? I don't understand with the forks. Yeah, I don't know. So what else is going on, guys? Tell us about the forks. In fact, you know what? You guys are both watching the show, so I assume that you have at least some reasonable free time. Call in and tell us what the forks are, because I'm intrigued by this. 970-666-NoCo. I really want to hear what this fork thing is.
I'm intrigued now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. ASU versus U of A.
Oh yeah, it's a big rivalry.
But what does that have to do with forks?
Well, the Sun Devil has a fork-like object. I mean, it's I don't really care about football. I just go to class and just do my thing.
Yeah, you're
Not a
like
big sports- baseball and hockey, but football's never really been something I got into.
Yeah, same here. Football doesn't really mean anything to me, and it's great because I work in an office with 3 other guys, and they all love football, and they talk about the Broncos, and they talk about all this, and I'm just like, I wear headphones all day, and like I couldn't participate in that conversation even if I wanted to, because I don't care. I think the amount that a lot of major sports players get paid is kind of obscene, and the amount of money that gets put into professional sports with, spending billions of dollars on NFL rights and things like that is a little absurd. But at the same time, like, I don't look down on other people for liking it. It's a phenomenon I don't understand. It's like being a furry. I don't understand how that works
I'm on the
either.
outside.
Yeah, it's like,
Outside looking in. What?
but at the same time, I don't need to understand what it's like to be a furry or why people do it.
Or why people like football. I'm just
Yeah.
you do you, I'll do me.
Oh my God, there should be a furry football league.
Maybe that might be debuting next summer. We could sponsor it.
Sarah says, put the number back up. It's 970-666-NoCo. And yes, that's a real number. Like on last week, people were like, that's not a real number. It is. And it's really our phone number. I spent extra money to make sure that we had a number that ended in NoCo, and it just happened to be with a 666 prefix.
No, it's just numbers.
Yeah, it's just numbers. But I actually got an email from a listener, like shortly after the station launched. I got an email from a listener that said, are you guys like into Satan? Is that why you have the 666 number? And he was like an older gentleman, and I think he was being tongue in cheek about it. At least I hope he was. But I was like, no, that was the only number that was available with NoCo at the end. So I don't know.
It is what it is. It is coinky dink.
Oh, we're getting a call. No fucking way.
A lot of firsts here.
Hey, you're on NoCo Live. What's up? Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the Sun Devil fork.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I gotcha. How messed up do you have to be to like be in Phoenix and one, call your team the Sun Devils, and two, like have a pitchfork as a symbol? Like,
Why can't you pick a cooler weapon? It's a sun devil.
well, I mean,
Could have spears, katanas.
they
Yeah.
are all crazy people, but at the same time, it's like, are they really trying to hammer home the notion that you literally live in hell?
Well, you can't hammer much with a fork.
Hey, that's true. That's true. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. I'll never understand it. People have tried to explain it to me. It's up there with furries and football. I just don't get it. Sorry.
And if not, we're starting one in Phoenix.
Yes, the Phoenix Furry Football League.
All this alliteration.
Wait, the Phoenix Furry Football Forks. That's up to 4. Can we get it to 5?
Yep. Yep. We're blanking.
Yeah, I got nothing. Whole lot of nothing. Well, thanks for calling in and explaining that. That's helpful. I don't know. Arizona sucks.
Learn
But
something new.
you know
See?
what? More power to him, I guess, for being able to withstand that. And, you transplanted from Arizona, so, you had the sense to get out. All right. Well, thanks for calling. Bye.
Bye.
That was our first call ever.
Woohoo!
Holy shit. That was cool.
Lots of firsts on NoCo tonight.
Yeah, and apparently Taylor tried to call too, but apparently we can only have one person calling it at a time. So sorry about that, Taylor. If you want to call in and rebut that whole Sun Devil argument, then call back. But if you just want to tell me that Phoenix is better, then I guess we can have that debate live. I mean, I'm okay with that.
Oh, my cousin and I are still having that debate.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Who's ahead so far?
I think it's kind of at a tie because we left it at, well, you can do all these great things outside. This was my argument because Colorado's really beautiful from spring to fall. And then you just cozy up in the winter and just do indoor things. And she's like, yeah, you can do the same thing in Phoenix, but you just stay inside during the summer and get cozy because it's hot as fuck outside.
Right.
So we're at a standstill right now. We will see. We will see.
Well, shit.
I'll keep you updated.
Okay, great. We are going to take a quick break from our sponsor, which we don't have. But we are going to talk a little bit about our Patreon and how you can support the station and support the channel. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. You are watching NoCo Live. Hi, this is Chris Lanfear, and I'm the general manager of NoCo FM. NoCo FM was built around 2 ideals: to empower a diverse group of people with a platform to tell their stories, and to bring unique and quality programming to the world. In the few short months that we've been in business, we've done just that, with shows like Connecting a Better World, where host Dr. Natalie Phillips interviews people who are devoted to doing social good in their communities. Don't forget The Lube, where hosts KevCat and JoJo start the conversation about sexuality in an inclusive and comedic way, while also answering questions from around the globe. The Spark, where host Stephanie James delves into the fields of psychology and wellness to give you the tools to live your best life. And Talk and Roll, where 4 hosts comedically stumble through a game of Dungeons & Dragons to tell the story of a group of adventurers lost in a world that isn't their own. These are just a few of the many quality shows that we produce for free, and let's not forget our live stream at NoCo.fm that's bringing you the best tunes and talk from around the world 24/7. Now, we'd like to ask for your help to give us the ability to bring even more unique and diverse perspectives to the airwaves. Let's talk quickly about where your money goes. 10% of all of our profits are invested back into the community by giving to local nonprofit organizations chosen by our patrons. What remains is split 60-40, with 60% invested into the company and 40% being shared among our hosts, giving them the financial freedom to continue making quality programming for you to enjoy. We have two simple goals for 2019. One, we need to be able to cover all of the costs that go into running an online radio station and podcast network. This includes investing in our hosts and producers to make the best programming that we possibly can. Two, we want to produce even more new shows on topics such as disabilities, parenting, film and video game music, and more. With your help, we can produce 24 new hours of programming every single week. Now, not only are you helping us, but as a supporter on Patreon, you'll get access to exclusive extras that are made just for you. Things like Inside NoCo, a behind-the-scenes podcast about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Corbin vs. the Movies, podcast of running commentary where host Corbin David Albaugh waxes poetic on the greatest trash cinema that we can find. Ad-free access to all of our programming. And campaign and behind-the-scenes material from Talk 'N Roll that you can use on your own D&D adventures, and much more. Thank you so much for considering becoming a patron of NoCo FM. We appreciate your support, and we're excited to see what the future brings as we work together to build and strengthen this community. To get started now, just go to noco.fm/Patreon. That's noco.fm/Patreon. And thanks. And we're back. Hello, everyone. All 5 of you that are watching, welcome back to NoCo Live. Just as before, I am Chris. This is Stina. Charles and KevCat are not here this week, but they will be back next week. And I really want to hear about KevCat's experience on the Plasma Canvas show.
Oh, yes.
Because they said that their neck was hurting, and I have to wonder if it was from rocking too hard.
Yeah, I think it was. They brought the house down. I think that's why they didn't have a roof on
Yes.
the stage. It was in case that were to happen with a great performance, is that it would just come down.
Yeah, and I mean they had the crowd like in the palm of their hands. Like there were 2 sets that I saw where people were so into it that it was palpable. And that was one, and Wilderness was the other. Like everyone who was at Wilderness was like so excited to be there. Carrie Pastine had some of that too, but a lot of that crowd was a bit older, so they weren't rocking out quite as hard as the as
they didn't want to like throw out that neck or that back.
Yeah,
the energy
you don't want to crack a
Carrie
hip.
Pastine has on stage is electric.
Yeah, I mean,
she's amazing to watch.
I don't know how old Carrie is, and I would never ask, but I know that she has the energy of someone who's probably 20 years younger than she is. It's pretty incredible.
21 at heart?
For sure. Yes, they were rocking hard. They were rocking super hard. I mean, everybody that we saw, I thought was great. Getting to see the Milk Blossoms was cool.
Oh, they were lovely. I loved their dynamic. And
Yeah.
I loved that keyboard player. I mean, really, like, I wish I had hair that just fell mysteriously like that. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was super cool to watch. Even Sugar Britches, like, and we've had Brian from Sugar Britches as a guest on one of our other shows on The Spark with Stephanie James, and check that out if you want to hear more about him. But they do more of like an Americana sort of country, sort of rockabilly kind of thing. And even though that's not what I listen to on a daily basis, like it was still really good. And they had a crowd there too that
They made a
loved
great
them.
connection with their crowd. Like they
Yeah.
made a lot of eye contact. They were really charismatic on stage. There was lots of smiles. You could tell they were really enjoying what they were doing and just being there in the moment. And it was hard not to get swept up into that.
Yeah,
And to just enjoy it with them. Like,
totally. I
was
mean,
awesome.
that was a lot of fun. So yeah, if you guys, if you're in Colorado, you're out of Colorado, whatever, if you get a chance to sample some of the music from a lot of these Colorado artists, give them a try because there's some really good stuff being made here. And even though I've worked in local radio for you know, a cup of coffee, I didn't know a whole lot about a lot of the local music other than like bands that my friends were in.
Yeah.
But there is so much talent, not only in Fort Collins, but in Boulder, in Denver, down in the Colorado Springs, like all around Colorado. There are phenomenal artists doing phenomenal work. And that's really cool to see. And it's really cool to support, like, you know, that's part of the reason this radio station exists, is to, you know, amplify that a little bit and give those people a platform to I don't want to say compete, but like keep
To be
up.
heard.
Yeah, to be heard, to keep up
Get
with
exposure.
yeah, to
Yeah.
get exposure with, you know, the bigger guys. And, you know, we talked before um about what some of the other radio stations are doing in terms of shifting their focus and going a little bit more mainstream. But, you know, we're tightening up. We are going a little bit more focused on local and regional acts, because like that's what we're here. That's what we're here to provide. And those are the people that need it, right? Like, not everyone, you know, if we're keeping it to Colorado, not everyone is the Fray or the Lumineers, you know, where
Or Ed
they're
Sheeran.
or Ed Sheeran. Is Ed Sheeran from here?
Oh, sorry, I guess not from here. But as
Oh.
far as big global stars, like really just getting to the top so quickly and so catchy for a good period of time.
Exactly. Well, like you know, several years ago, the Fray, the reason they kind of got on the map is through being promoted on 93.3. But that was at a time when Clear Channel let their stations actually like choose what they wanted to play, and right now they don't. Like, they have 8 million stations and they all play the same stuff. And the local DJs have less and less of an ability to program the stuff that they want to. There's like certain restrictions of things that they have to play. So it's like, well, how does the next Fray or the next Lumineers like break out, right?
Right.
It's there's got to be independent voices, and there's got to be a place to allow that stuff to kind of blossom, for lack of a better word. What else? You know, we try not to talk politics on this show, but sometimes it's really hard. I saw I saw a post today that CNN put up. There is a draft executive action from the White House that if it be basically, you know, Trump has always said that there's a media bias against conservatives. That's kind of one of his talking points, saying that, like, well, the reason you're not hearing more conservative voices is because they're being censored by Twitter and Facebook and whatever, even though there is zero support, zero evidence that that's actually true. That's never stopped him. But they're now looking at imposing penalties on social media companies and making them explain why certain things get removed as a way to counter it. And if that ends up being something that becomes an executive order, not only is it a huge constitutional challenge, but it's also like terrifying because it has the ability to curtail free speech on the internet. And for me, and that's why I wanted to bring it up on this show, because we would not exist if we didn't have the freedom of being broadcast online, and if we didn't have the ability to get our stuff out there without having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a radio tower and be subject to all those restrictions. You know, because one of the questions that we get sometimes is like, well, why aren't you on the airwaves? You know, the traditional like FM airwave.
Yeah.
One, because it costs too fucking much, and two, because I can't say the word fucking. You know, there's a lot of things I can't say. You know, even like when I was at, I used to work for a community radio station, and, you know, there's a huge list of FCC requirements that you have to adhere to. You can't advocate for things. You can't do what are called calls to action. So you can't say, I saw Carrie Pastine in the crime scene and you should go check out their show. You can't say that. You have to say, Carrie Pastine in the crime scene is playing on Thursday night at 7:30. And tickets are available at, you know, Ticketmaster.com. That is all you can do.
Boring.
It's boring and it's antiquated. And I understand they're public airwaves, and there has to be some sort of rules, right? Some sort of guidance.
Unbiasedness. I
Right.
can see that.
Exactly. And like, I understand why those rules are there, but I also understand that, like, it's the 21st century, and one thing that the FCC rules have not caught up to is the 21st century. Like, the fact that, like, starting, well, what was that Super Bowl where Justin Timberlake like showed Janet Jackson's boob for like 2 seconds and everyone flipped the fuck out?
It was all over the paper and the media.
It was all over, and like CBS was fined for that. Like that was a huge deal, and
she
that's
had a pasty on. She had it covered up.
I know, but
She had stickers there.
that's how afraid people are of boobs. I guess I don't know. I don't subscribe to
either
that.
has them or has been on one, or it's something. Boobs are relatable. Everybody's had experience with them.
And honestly, everybody loves them. So I don't understand what the problem is. But, that's fine. Like, if you're offended by that, I whatever. I mean, to each their own. That's fine, I guess. But we wanted to broadcast with like total freedom to be able to say whatever we wanted to say without restrictions, not necessarily without rules, because like we have guidelines.
Decency,
yeah, like we try to be decent, we try to be fair. We don't try to be like overly profane. Like, I'm not going to come on here and rant against like name your marginalized minority. Like, that's not what we're for. Freedom doesn't mean the freedom to be obscene, but it bothers me that like that is working its way through the system. And in Turkey, they just passed a law that gives the government censorship privileges over podcasts.
Interesting.
Which is concerning, because if there's no checks against the government, if you're not allowed to speak truth to power, that's a huge problem.
Spreading information is so important. That's how we communicate. It's how we band together. It's how we make things right in certain circumstances.
Yeah, and that's how we find common causes, right? Or common threads. And it's impossible to do that if you don't have a free, discourse. And so, yeah, those things coming down the pike, I don't know necessarily what I wanted to say about this other than to say that it really bothers me. And I hope that, the tide turns with next year's election. But that's all I'll probably say about it. I don't know. I don't want to get too heavy.
If you invent a time machine, please let us know.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But at this point, we have to wait.
God. It can't come soon enough is really all I'm going to say, and I'll leave it at that. But what else? Yeah. So this show that you're watching right now, all three of you that are watching, I can see every one of you. This broadcast is the first live broadcast from this studio. And what I mean by that is, up until now, every single thing that has come across our network was pre-recorded, at least on the radio stream. Obviously, the live show that we do every Monday night has always been live on Twitch, but this is the first time that it's been live on the radio stream as well. We previously didn't have the proper wiring and stuff to make that happen, but I am glad that we finally have our first live broadcast. I'm glad that you are here to be part of that.
Yes, the first intern on the first live show with our first call.
Yeah,
Just
our first
checking the
call.
list.
First call-in guest. Like, it's the first time we've had
barriers.
that. We are. I mean, we've been going at this for a little over a year, and to see the excitement that people have and the support that lots of people have given us, even like yesterday when I was talking with someone from Bohemian Nights, they were said like, I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. And the fact that they just knew that we were doing stuff was like enough for me, because it's hard to get noticed. Like, even with having social media and all of these outlets, there is so much noise and so much like useless stuff out there, for lack of a better word, that
Definitely flooded.
Yeah, the market's flooded, and there's 8 kabillion podcasts, but 7 kabillion of them suck, and it is. And
we want to be the 1 kabillion.
We want to be part of the 1 kabillion, the 1% of podcasts. And that was part of the goal too. Is like, I don't want to be NPR, but I don't want to be guy in his closet.
Yeah, we're NPR with charisma.
Exactly. Yeah. Welcome to the delicious dish. Later we'll have on Pete Schweddy and his
Schweddy balls.
Schweddy balls. That's my NPR voice. So yeah, we're coming up on 9 o'clock. So I guess we should probably get out of here. Um, and thank you to you, Stina, for I didn't know until about an hour before we went live that Charles wasn't going to be here. So thank you for coming in and
Hey, it's
stepping
my
up and
pleasure.
doing a great job as an intern so far. And I mean, we have not, Stina's our first intern as well. So like, we're learning how to do lots of things together, and that's really cool. It's really cool to be a part of it. Like, this is something that Charles and I started, but it is definitely not. It has never been about us, or never about just us. We want everyone's voices to be heard. We want to be a platform for people to come in and tell their stories. So, I'm really glad you're here, and
I'm really
glad that
glad
you're a
to
part
be
of it.
here.
So yeah, next week we'll be back with Charles's energy drink corner,
Woo.
and hopefully have some more new things to talk about. I'm sure that it'll be interesting. So NoCo Live is every Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain, right here on NoCo FM, and streaming at noco.live on YouTube and Twitch. And I think it might even be on my Facebook page right now. If so, hi, Mom. But you can watch the show at those locations, or you can listen to the stream at noco.fm. So let us know your thoughts. Comment. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to talk about, and maybe we'll put that in the topics for next week. In the chat, Taylor says, Stina, clap, clap, clap.
Hey, thank you.
Yay. I've been Chris. This has been Stina. Thank you guys for watching and listening and chatting with us. And we will be back next week.
Until next time.
Until next time, this is NPR.